How's it going, everybody? Adam here from Coding Basics, and welcome to tutorial number 13 in my Introduction to Python series. This video, we are going to continue making the number guessing game that we started in the last tutorial. If you didn't see that, I'd go watch it just to see how we ended up with all this code. If you don't want to do that, just pause the video and copy all the code that I have written here. Right now we have a skeleton number guessing game, but in this video we're going to add some features into it, including score, allowing the user to play multiple games, and also I'm going to introduce two new functions that's going to help the game look a little bit better. So first we're going to import those two functions. From OS, import system, and then from time, import sleep. The system function is what we're going to use to clear the screen. That way the PowerShell window doesn't get cluttered with a bunch of text. And then sleep is going to pause it, so the user has a couple seconds to read a message before the next one is displayed. So first, though, before we implement those two things, we are going to start by making a function that allows the user to play more than one game. We are going to define a new function. We're going to call that one play again. And first, we're going to ask the user a question if they want to play again. So create a variable called answer, and it's going to be a string. And answer is going to be equal to raw underscore input. And here we'll ask them, do you want to play again? And then in square brackets, we'll put y/n. What that means is, do you want to play again? If you type in yes, yes, you want to play again. If you type in no, then no, you don't want to play again. Exit out to the command line, game over. If you don't type that in, that's an invalid input, and we'll just keep asking input until you put in a valid one. So now that we have their answer, we're going to see what they typed in. So if answer equals in the quotation marks y. Now, only thing I'm going to say here is, what if the user accidentally types in a space before they put in the y? That will cause this to be wrong, because it would be that instead of y. So answer dot strip is what we're going to call. And that'll get rid of any blank spaces in front or behind the y. So if answer.strip equals y, then return true. And then elif answer.strip equals n, going to return false. Why are we using return statement? Well, think back to my tutorial on functions in Python. Return statements return a value. So what we can do is use the return statement. So instead of playing being set to false, we can call the function play again, and it will return either true as the boolean or false, and set the playing variable to that value. So when a return statement is called, the function ends. So if I said return true and then print out some sort of message, that message won't get printed. Once true or the return is called, then function over. Won't do any more. So keep that in mind. Only thing we have to do now in this function is handle invalid input. So else, we're going to return and just recall the function again. And this function will get called until they type in a valid input. So let's test that out and see what happens. So run the program. What is your guess? So we just got to guess the number right quickly. Too low, 37. All right. Would you like to play again? Yes. There we go. Now the only other thing I want to show you is how the strip function works. So just got to re-guess the number, which is going to be 37 again. And now if I put a ton of spaces and now my y, it still works. So that's how the strip function works. All right. Next, we got play again working, but you'll notice When I typed in 37, that was still the answer. That was still the random number. All we're doing now is letting the user keep playing. What we got to do now is reinitialize the game so that a new random number is chosen and guesses is set back to 0. So what we're going to do there is we are going to create a new function. So define new game. This is the function that's going to be called to reinitialize everything. So what we're going to do is copy these two lines here and paste them. But any of you who are experienced in Python would know this is not going to work because these are called inside the function. Anything inside a function is going to be a local variable, only being able to be accessed inside this function. So even though we already have these defined up there, still they are not going to be accessible inside this function. How do we get that? Well, we're going to use the global keyword and then num. So instead of creating a new variable, it's saying look globally for a variable called num and set that to this new value. And then we're going to do the same thing for guesses. So global guesses. Alright, that's going to work. Now all we have to do is, well, if the user does want to play again, then we'll call this new game function, but we're going to have to make sure we call that before the return statement, otherwise it isn't going to get called. New game, open close bracket. Alright, let's see what our program does now. Guess the number between 1 and 150, too low, 75, too high, so 67, too high, 62. You guessed the number. Took you 4 guesses. Do you want to play again? Yes, we do. Now if we call 62, that's not the answer. It would have been a coincidence if it was the right answer, but no, a new random number is chosen. So we have now allowed the user to play multiple games at once, and they can reinitialize all the variables and play a new game. That way it's different each time. Final thing I want to do is implement score. So we're going to create a score variable, and it's going to be a floating point. Oops, sorry, score equals 0.0. And that's why we imported the future division, because how score is going to work, we're going to have a base score of 1,000. The score you get is equal to 1,000 divided by the number of guesses, which will give us a floating point with future division in, which will give us a more accurate score. So in that case, what we're going to do is, once the number has been guessed, score plus equals, and then in brackets we're going to say 1,000, that's our base score, divided by the number of guesses. Only thing is, that'll give us an accurate score, but think about all the games you've played in your life. How many of them have, say, like a score of 100.68? So what we're going to do in that case, when we print out the user's score, we're just going to typecast it to int before we typecast it to a string. If that is confusing, I'll show you how we do that. So what we're going to do is, after we tell them how many guesses it took, we're then going to display their current score. Current score equals, and then we're going to add string. Inside that, we're going to typecast our floating point score to integer. So that is how it would look. We first change it to an integer, so that way it's a whole number, and then we're going to change it to a string. So let's try that out now. Alright, so go back to PowerShell. Just going to clear this to make it look better. There. Guess the number 50. Too low, 75. Too low, 87. Too low. Okay, we got a big number, 94. Too high, 90. Too low, so 92. Too low, it's got to be 93. So there. Took you only 7 guesses. Your current score, 142. Do you want to play again? Yes. And it's just going to add to the score once we get this one right. So try to be quick on this one. Too high, 92. too high, 90. Whoa, okay, I meant to type in 90 there, 90. 88, there. So now it added the new score to our previous one. So now you have 267 points, so there. And now if we hit N, users exited out of the game. So that is our score feature implemented. Alright, now the last thing we have to program is these two functions that we first imported. So what you want to do is every time you have a new turn, we are going to clear the screen. So system, and then inside the brackets, in quotation marks, if you're a Mac or Linux user, type clear. If you're a Windows user like me, CLS. Alright, now if we run this, oops, PowerShell has froze on me. Sorry about that, I just got to relaunch this quickly. Alright, change back to my directory. Alright, now if we run the program, Python numguess.py. So now if we run it, you'll notice that welcome message was cleared away. And only this is shown, and every time we guess a new number, it's just going to clear any other text that's added every turn. Well, we don't want text to be cleared that quickly. We want the user to have a chance to read it. So what we're going to do is use the sleep function. So sleep, and then inside is the number of seconds you want your program to wait. So we want it to wait, let's say, 1 second maybe. You can play around with it, see what works for you. And then we're going to sleep every time a new line of text is displayed. That way the user has a chance to read it. We also have to do this for the invalid loop. So what we will do is, if an invalid thing is entered in, we'll just sleep it quickly for 1 second, and then we will call the system clear screen method. Here, now I guess we'll do the same thing. We'll do the same thing here, except we won't clear the screen. Alright. And then we have to do the same thing for these if statements. So every time this is displayed, we're going to just sleep our program for that, how about 2 seconds, just to give it a little bit of a change up. Actually, instead of doing it for each if statement, we'll just put it at the bottom of this entire function. So once it is displayed which method, sleep for 2 seconds before starting a new turn. So I'm going to exit out of this one, relaunch our program, and here is our finished game. Take it in. So let's start with 50. Too high. Try again. New turn. 75. Too high. Try again. Guess number between 1 and 100. What is your guess? It was too high, right? That was what the last one was? Yeah. So 25. Too low. 37. Too low. I can't even remember what 50 was. So the 50 was too high, okay. It's 37, so 45. Too low. 46. There. That is your number. Current score works and everything. Do you want to play again? Yes, we do. There we go. And new game starts. So that is our finished number guessing game. You can play around, do other stuff with it, implement high score, stuff like that. And that's all we're going to be doing with this number guessing game. I don't think I'm going to come back to it. So thank you guys for watching. Check out codingbasics.ca, comment, like the video, and subscribe. And I will see you in my next tutorial.